Hey, good evening. It's Friday, June 9th, and welcome to Everyday Talks 24/7. I'm going to talk tonight more about wisdom from above and how we speak. Wisdom in our words. You can tell by the thumbnail that the words I'm talking about are words that we deem to be not acceptable. Language is kind of, off color, swearing, whatever. But I'm not about trying to get us to form a list of do's and don'ts, good words and bad words, because this is a matter of the heart. This is a matter of wisdom. And the next quality of wisdom we're looking at in James 3:17 is wisdom from above overflows with mercy and good fruit. And there are many ways we can do that, but language is one of them. It's a very common way. Remember, in the earlier part of James 3, we saw how destructive language is. And if we're not conscious with our language about trying to honor God, not make ourselves look better than somebody else. Oh, I don't talk like that. And that's not what I'm saying. But how can we build? How can we encourage? The language around us in our culture is more and more punctuated with language which is origins are not necessarily rooted in the desire to bring mercy and good fruit. And initially, a lot of the foul language, what we call swearing, curse words, they come about when something goes wrong, when we're angry, when we're not grateful, when we're bitter in the way life unfolds. But it's become so common in our culture that it's taken a meaning beyond just those things, and we're now is a part of everyday speech. In my book, Everyday Talk, in chapter 12, I talk about this. This is 19 years ago. And then I observed, surely even the world around us knows that we should not swear in front of children. And then I said, perhaps this may be true for the moment. However, the growing reality is swearing is fast becoming a part of standard speech. And now, movies that are made for children contain plenty of swear words. Because it's around us, it's the way our culture speaks. I also wrote, swearing is how the world today gives expression and forcefulness in its conversations. The reality is that swearing has become the emotional punctuation of modern speech. If that was true 19 years ago, it's 10 times more true today. And that's where we are. We are engaging in this kind of language and speech, which has its roots in things that are not healthy and not beautiful, but very negative and demeaning to God, and demeaning to us as well. But they're so part of our culture. We think that if we have to make an emotional point, we have to add something. If we're going to be real, if we're going to be authentic, we've got to add some sort of swear word into the conversation to punctuate it so people know that we're serious. And in doing that, we have left so much of the richness of language. We've cast it aside for use of this language, which does not bring honor to God. Remember, what we're after here is a heart that is showing the wisdom of mercy and good fruit. Paul talks about this in Ephesians 5. He says this, the first 4 verses of Ephesians 5. Be imitators of God, therefore. We don't need that language to imitate God. Be imitators of God, therefore, as dearly loved children, and live a life of love, just as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us as a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God. Combines many themes we've looked at recently. But then Paul says this in verse 3. But among you there must not even be a hint of sexual immorality, or of any kind of impurity, or of greed, these selfish things, because these are improper for God's holy people. You've been set apart. Then he says, nor should there be any obscenity, or foolish talk, or coarse jesting, which are out of place, out of character. But rather, instead of those things, Paul says, there should be thanksgiving. See, these discussions of obscenities, these things that are using rough language, which cut down and demean people, which show our anger, our displeasure in ways other than what God has called us to. Those are negative things. The obscene talk, the foolish talk. So much of what we call humor is just about foolish talk. It's not positive. Coarse jesting, where we make fun of people. We use word tricks. We double entendres. We play around too much. The goal is not to build up, not to be full of mercy and wise fruit and good fruit. Rather, we become like the world, so much of what we do is just simply to make a point at the moment, to get people to notice us, to let us know I'm really serious because I'm using blanking language. And we're moving away from what God is calling us to. This is, again, like I said, this is not about these words are good, these words are bad. This is a matter of the heart. Bringing our speech to the point where we conform not to the world around us, but we're transformed because we are dearly loved by God. Our speech, our everyday speech, needs to demonstrate that we are dearly loved by God. I think sometimes we save that for church. But our language is to demonstrate that God loves me. Paul says this. Be imitators of God, therefore, as dearly loved children, and live a life of love. Later on in Ephesians 5, Paul talks about living as children of light. This kind of language is not about living as children of light. It's allowing the world to shape us, to conform us, to express ourselves in a way that is pleasing to the enemy and displeasing to God. One area in particular where this has happened, and it's just woven itself into our culture, where it's part of the fabric of everyday life, is the F word. We hear it all the time. If you're exposed to streaming programs, you listen to things even more on television, but on movies, streaming, literature. Somehow, the F word is everywhere. If you want to be an adult, you use the F word. Whether it's an adverb or an adjective or a noun or a verb. And what the F word does is demeaning to women. It's part of the cultural abuse of women. We don't think about it that way. I'm not saying that that's what you mean, but that's what the word does. It takes something that is beautiful and precious, that God designed as holy, to bring joy and to represent our relationship with Him, and it makes it into something ugly, to the point where we're not caring about women. We're not caring about the people that we love. We're not caring about our daughters. We're using a word that the world has trained us to use to further attack the family and really degrade men as well as women. That's not about engaging in mercy and good fruit. That's engaging in vindication and destructive fruit. So give thought to this. May our language reflect not just a list of good and bad words, but are we really consciously thinking how we can show mercy and good fruit, wisdom from above, to show that we have left this world behind and we are transformed into people who really care about God first instead of ourselves. give some thought to your language. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Again, thank you for the honor of being with you every day, and it's an honor. And Lord willing, we'll see you tomorrow. Good night. Thank you so much for watching. It is such a huge encouragement.